What things did you do as a kid that you now realize is extremely weird? I used to have science experiments in the bathroom sink. Meaning, I'd go to the bathroom and lock the door. Once and I'd make sure the sink drain was shut and then proceed to add every cleaner/chemical, shampoo etc. under the sink to the sink in hopes of a reaction. Never got one, but it also never stopped me from trying. In hindsight, I probably could have killed myself if I had mixed the wrong stuff. I obviously didn't. I did this too. Then got a bunch of headaches and never did it again. Mind you, it did take a couple of headaches for me to realize me mixing random it gave me headaches. The scientific method at work. Thank you for your research. Holy hell, I did exactly the same thing. Mum got mad ASF at me many times. I used to eat tissues as a kid. My mum found out one day and yelled at me to stop, as any sane parent would do, so I started eating them in secret, sneaking away with a tissue box to another room to eat a tissue or two. Until one day when I was about 5 years old I had to go to the hospital. I had no idea what was going on, all I knew was that I had trouble breathing through my nose. Before my operation I was in the hospital and I overheard one of the nurses say that they just needed to remove the excess tissue in my nose. Naturally I thought that the tissues I had eaten had started getting clogged up in my nose and I never ate a tissue again. I made the realization at 14 that it was muscle tissue in my nose and not the actual tissues I was eating. That was a roller coaster. I made the realization at school in science class and just audibly said holy frick. One person asked me what was wrong. I never told them. I'd like to imagine if you did tell them lol. Holy frick. What's wrong? I had to go to the doctor as a kid because I had a hard time breathing and I overheard them saying they just needed to remove an excess of tissue. I used to eat tissues so I thought I had a literal tissue buildup in my nose. W.A.T. A girl, used to sit back to front on the toilet to pee. My reasoning was that way it sounded like my dad peeing and then the monsters wouldn't try to grab me. Childhood anxiety is wild. Then you have a place for your comic books and your chocolate milk. In grade 1 we would sit in a group on the floor in front of the teacher while she read us stories. I would sit at the back of the group against the wall and pull my pants halfway down my bum. I liked feeling the cool ground wall against my bare butt. When I was in elementary school I would use one hand to cover my butt when I showered, because I was afraid that a monster would warp through the bathroom wall and attack my butthole. Reminds me of that one story about the mum who made her son wear a butt plug for a while, because she was high and swore up and down monsters would come out of their child's aole. What? I used to eat mechanical pencil lead. No idea how I got into that habit, but I think I enjoyed the crunchiness of it. Did it for a little while, but showed a classmate and she immediately went to the teacher who then called my mum who scolded me and told me to stop. Goodbye 0.7mm. You will be missed. Damn snitches ruin all the fun. I used to love flossing with it. The amount of times the lead snapped and got stuck in my gums was a lot. Running any lollipop or sucker I ate under the faucet water after every lick, because somehow it tasted better after being rinsed lol. It does taste better. I never did it on purpose, but if I dropped my lollipop on the ground I would wash it and it tasted great. I would walk out the bathroom after taking it and spread my ass cheeks to whoever was in the living room and ask, is my butt clean? One time it was the guy cleaning our carpet. Imagine cleaning some person's carpet and out of nowhere this gremlin of a child hobbles out of the bathroom, spreads his cheeks, and asks you to tell him how clean his aole is. This comment actually made me laugh out loud. How absurd when you picture it from that guy's perspective. Saying some gibberish all the time and thinking that it is probably meaningful in some languages. I felt smart as hell. I used to make random noise and word combinations and get into really weird contorted poses to be the only one to ever do this. That sounds familiar. I used to touch random things at unusual spots wherever I went, like the bottom of a railing or one single leaf on a clover field, because, who knows, maybe I was the first to ever touch this. For much of 2nd grade, for some reason, my parents let me pack my own lunch. I had 2 sandwiches of choice. One was what I call the triple butter sandwich. Peanut butter, apple butter, and butter. A little strange, but okay. The other was a lettuce sandwich. White bread, mayo, and a few leaves of iceberg lettuce. I have no idea how they let me eat that for most of a full school year. Oh my god, I used to eat lettuce, white bread, mayo, lettuce only, sandwiches from like 2nd, 6th grade. When I was a kid, in the 80s, I had very strict teachers. Any form of backtalking or, God forbid, swearing, would get you a quick slap and a fast march to the head teacher's office to explain yourself. My teacher once sat me down for a talk, as happened fairly often, which was basically her just berating me. In the middle of this she suddenly stopped and told me I needed to keep my eyes under control, because I had this terrible nervous habit of twitching my eyes when she was talking to me. In actual fact, I was tracing out imaginary swear words with my eyes. Basically, drawing out things like piss off and shut up, tracing the letters with my eyes, as if they were right in front of her face. I didn't realize she could see my eye movements. I mean, I don't know why. As an adult it's obvious that my eyes were darting all over the place and looking crazy, but child me thought that it was subtle enough that it was unnoticeable, and that I was being super sneaky. As soon as I realized she could see it, I stopped. But looking back, probably the funniest part to me now is how much it must have unnerved her. And she never did know the reason for it. To her, I must have just been the weird kid with the crazy eyes. Oh my goodness, I just tried this with my eyes. I'm sorry, but you must have looked insane. This is so funny. Everyone who read this sat here trying it and we all spelling frick off hut up. When I was around 5, I would basically act like a train and follow the lines on the playground, whilst also using my hands as those little rail things on the wheels, coupling rods. I would also look directly up when it was cold and use my mouth as a chimney. Honestly, it must have looked like I was insane. That's funny as hell. When I was 4 or so, we lived in a flat in the USA that had this massive concrete structure behind it. I've no idea what it was, but at the bottom of it was at least a foot of dank water, trees, etc. I was convinced it was a swimming pool, and begged my mum to let me swim in it. No, absolutely not, she said. It's full of snapping turtles, and they will snap off your fingers. I also wanted to eat all these berries that were on local bushes. No, absolutely not. Those are poisonous. They'll make you very sick and then dead. Clever me. I put the two ideas together and thus spent that summer throwing poison berries into the swamp structure in order to kill all the turtles. 4 years old, stuck on murder mode for 3 months. It might have been a foundation from a torn down building that still had the basement. There's a thought. It's been a mystery to me for years. When I was around 8 years old, I liked the way clean towels tasted. Something I really enjoyed was putting a towel over a straw and drinking Kool-Aid through it. My mother wasn't a fan of having white towels covered with red spots, so she put a stop to it pretty quick. I liked how clean towels tasted too. I'd get them wet and suck the water out of them for a nice beverage. Holy it. I did this too. I would never have remembered it, but after reading this it kind of flooded back memories of wetting a washcloth in the shower and sucking on the water. I don't think I drank it, but the taste was very distinct and not like anything else I can think of. I used to keep the last piece of food I was eating in my mouth even for an hour. For example, if I was eating pizza, the last piece of the last slice would remain in my mouth while I went playing and running around. I stopped at the age of 9, when I almost died of asphyxiation. I would add several drops of Tabasco to my unsweetened iced tea. I called it Asian tea despite knowing Tabasco and Lipton were in no way Asian. I also didn't like it very much, but made myself drink it so that I could understand the Asian community better. Asian friends I have now are still baffled at the connection I tried to make. When I was 7, on a 5-day field trip, I put salt on apples and convinced my friends this is how Armenians ate them. At that time, I have never met an Armenian, or had a good idea where Armenia was, but for some reason, I insisted that's how it's done and that by doing that I'm worldly. I used to stand naked in my bedroom window and try to stay as still as possible so the neighbors would think my parents had had a statue made of me. I would stand in different poses, too, so they'd think there were multiple dendronite statues which my parents would rotate around the house. The way I saw it, only important people had statues built of them. I wanted the neighbors to know they lived near a pretty important guy. I'm imagining your neighbors in a moral crisis as they try desperately not to look at the new child across the street, but it just keeps reappearing in different places. May oh Jesus Christ. Hey sweetie, did the Johnson get a statue? A statue of apparently a small child. Hey sweetie, I swear that statue was on the top floor yesterday. Officers please. I thought they were a statue. I didn't know I was peeping on children. This reads like something out of a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book. I immediately thought Calvin and Hobbes. Oh my god, I did this too. But I specifically posed like Jesus on a cross to mimic those giant statues I saw in church. It made me feel important.